This is Short Hammer. It is the 31st of July, 2022, and this is Trading Zones. We had a great week, definitely interesting week. And so headed into this week, I think the thought is, what should we be looking out for? Okay, if last week is any sign, um, the first sign of a changing of the sentiment, and I'm not talking, some people were like, oh, you could tell it was the bottom because that was the bottom way down here. Oh, okay, maybe, maybe. But for me, I look for breaks of levels, and the break above the 1746 by the 1797 area, that's a sign, right? And then so on your back test, what you wait for on this break is back test, right? And then on the back test, that's where you look for your entries, right? And so you'd get long this, and you'd expect this area to hold for the buyers to step in and push us up out of this area, right? Because this area, when you break under, becomes a supply area. So it pushes back into it, you fade, right? Once you break through it, back test of that area, it now becomes demand. And so back test into this area, you get long. Okay. And also depending on if you know where the sentiment is, right? So the first sign that there was a changing of the guard was you had a few tickers that missed on their earnings expectations, but they gave pretty good guidance and they went up, right? That's sign number one, that the interpretations beginning to change. And you had some that missed and guided down that still went back up. So that was the first sign, like, hold on a second here. And also, if you look all throughout earnings, the market really didn't go down tremendously on any earnings, right? And so it was just really interesting how so sort of through the different earnings, even through the remember, and do you remember what we were talking about with when financial earnings came out and the banks were coming out and some of the numbers were pretty bad, but the market didn't drop, right? And so that's one thing. The next thing was FOMC, and we bit out of that. And so what that begins to tell you is um bad news may now be considered good news. Why? Is inflation gone? Has inflation gone down? Nope. That hasn't happened. Um, is there less pressure on individuals, on jobs? Nope. That hasn't changed. Has the Fed decided that they're gonna stop raising interest rates? Nope. None of that stuff has changed, but the sentiment around it has changed to where now people are beginning to feel, or some are beginning to feel, that bad news is good news because the bad news may force the Fed to um to stop raising interest rates, right? And that's a potential sentiment. So what you have to remember about the market, I know that I'm going long on this and I'm gonna be done really quickly. What you have to remember about the market is the news doesn't matter. You can't look at the news and say, oh, because the news is X, the outcome is definitely going to be Y. You'll get rocked thinking that way. What you want to do is the news is X. Let's see what the reaction is. That's Y. Wait for the reaction. After the reaction, then you say, okay, based on the reaction to the news, my action is now Z. Right? So you don't go, oh, news is X, so I'm going to do Y because of the news. Okay. That doesn't work. Oh, this missed earnings, I'm going to just go and buy puts. That doesn't work. That's not how it works. Wait for the reaction. When the market gives you the reaction and you see what the market's doing based on the news, then you react to the reaction. Don't react to the news, react to the reaction. That's what you have to remember. So going forward, are we going to break out and make all-time highs? I don't know, because there's still a lot of pressure on the economy. There's a lot of pressure for the Fed to figure out inflation. Have they figured it out? No, they haven't. They have no idea what to do about inflation. They have no clue, and it's getting worse, right? So, um, housing markets under pressure. Some of the prices, some of the markets in the U.S. have begun to soften a little bit. You see, there's definitely a feeling in many areas that it's no longer 100% a seller's market. The buyers are beginning to sort of claw back a little bit of that control and negotiations. When it comes to money back at the table, when it comes to pricing, when it comes to the amount of new mortgage applications, that's not as much. So these different things are beginning to put pressure on sellers to be a little bit more I'll say open to negotiations when it comes to their properties, right? So we'll see. So looking at the RTY, let's get right into that, right? So we did pop back test and we took off to the upside. So what will I be watching for? I would definitely just look to the left, right? And we look back in June, and we saw that in June there's this little pocket between this 1867 area right up into the 1903, right? And so that's possible. And yeah, that's possible. We could definitely squeeze up into 1903. But next week, I believe we have jobs, and the potential of Nancy Pelosi flying to Taiwan might provide some turbulence in the market, depending upon China's reaction to that. So that's going to be interesting things to watch. But as far as you know, more negative inflation or any of that type of news making the market drop, we just like COVID, just like tariffs on China, there are things that create turbulence and uncertainty in the market. Once the market begins to price in that uncertainty, and they know that that uncertainty now becomes certainty, like, oh, this is going to happen and that's going to happen, and they know, then based on that, even if the news is bad, it's no longer uncertainty. The thing that gets the market is uncertainty. It's not the news, it's the uncertainty. The more certain the market is of what's going to happen, the better investors can build plans around that and continue with their investing. They just need to know what, and then they'll figure out how they're going to execute. So that's what I'll be watching for on RTY. We're looking at our lines. The level that we're above right now is the 1881s. Above that, we have 1893. Above that, about 1898, then 1910. But as I mentioned, watch these wicks up into the 1904, 1905 area, and watch the lower area of the 1868. If we drop that, because that's roughly right where we have, what's this here? 1871 is this pop blue pivot. If we go back through that and we sell through the 1860s, then you want to definitely keep your eye open to see if we test the 1829, 1830-ish area at all. So that'd be interesting to watch if we get a pullback through there. If we continue to go up, then we'll definitely watch 1904 and maybe even the 1910s. That'll be interesting, right? So we'll see how that plays out. But no, we're not in a bull market. No, like, just all you have to remember, bull market, bear market, all that doesn't matter. Watch your levels, trade level to level, take your profits, leave a runner, right? That's all you got to remember. Everything else is a lot of noise. No one can predict exactly what's going to happen next or exactly how he may react to it. But what you can do is look at past chart setups and levels and do that. That's basically what you can do. So here we are, MES at a beautiful area, back up in the 4070s by the 4150s. So we'll see if we could break out of this area. Look back to the left. Look at this late May into early June action. That's something to watch as we see what's going to happen, right? What might happen this upcoming week. We saw this pop, this pullback here right around 2 p.m. And look how that aligns with these areas that we have here from early June, right? Look at that. How we just, it's like almost like a brick wall, right? And so when you see this on this candle, when the next candle doesn't reject and we buy up into that area, it breaks to the supply and supply becomes demand. So now we should look for the 4070s to hold. That's what I would be looking for. the 4070s down through the 4060s. Let's see if we can catch it, if that could now be our area where the buyers are, they hold. And this could give rise all the way through to the 4150s, maybe even higher. But definitely watching out for the 4150s unless we get some sort of news that comes out to change this sentiment. That's what I'll be watching for and seeing if we sort of stay in this range for a little bit. But we did break out of some pretty serious consolidation for a few weeks. And so this extension definitely expected. Let's see how far we can go here, right? So definitely watching the 4150s. Next up is 4160s, then 4203 is a level. Above that, 4249 to the downside, 4109, 4070. And if we drop that, then we're looking at 4016s. But just based on this break above this area, the 4075, I would expect us to hold that area, or at least buyers to try to hold if we pull back. But we'll see how that works out. Keep it moving. Q. Da da da. Da 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 da. Okie dokie. So we see all these higher lows, right? And if you remember from the previous weeks, I have this trend line here. We're holding this trend line. And what I was watching for is 12,500 by 12,600 is the area to watch. What do we do when we push up into that area, right? And so when you look at this, the first pushes in the 12,500s did lead to a pullback, right? All the way through. Even here, 27th of July, that push up led to a pullback, right? But this push up, we kind of just pushed through that really, like, that's a strong push and a break through that area, right to the 12,700s. Look at the next candle. It's taking us to the next level, right? Even though we had a pullback here into the 12,740s, the buyers just kept pushing us and stretching the charts. What are we watching for? Now that we're above the 12,500 by 12,600, we're looking for the upside and looking that if we see any pullbacks, that those buyers may be in that area. So unless we get significant news, we'll definitely be looking for that area to hold and for us to continue to the upside. But I'm not bullish. I'm not bearish. I'm just waiting for the reactions each day to these different levels. So if I'm watching this, right, I'm looking at the candle structure over here to the left. This is going to tell you this is exactly what I look at in the intraday. Usually on a 30-minute time frame, right? But I have the 4-hour that I look at also, right? So once we went up above this 12,730s and we gave rise up into this area here, look at that. Look to the left. The 12,920s, 930s. Look here. What do you see? This is, what is this? No, that's not it. It's, yeah, here. Yeah. Right here. 12,929, the top there. This is 12,890. That's not the one. But 12,890s over here, it went as high as 12,980s. So we had a stretch there. But just looking right in here is where I'd look first. Even looking across to here, 12,909, just this area here. Once we hit those 12,930s, that was an area to watch. 12,920s, 12,930s, that was an area to watch to see if we'd see any turbulence. And we did see some because we struggled at that area. Above this area, right, it opens up and we might get a push. Right here is the 13, where this pop purple is, or where it was, 13,020, right up in that area. And you can see these lower wicks right around 12, with this 12,980s. And it so sort of this area, 12,980s into the 13,020s. That's the area to watch, right? So if you're playing that, you're watching that area for a reaction, right, from the sellers. See if the sellers are doing anything in that area. We're getting type of reaction there. That's the area that you watch. So we're still going to be watching that headed into next week and seeing if we can get a squeeze up into the 90s potentially by 13100s and see what happens there. Because look here, on the 2nd of May, all the way through the 4th or 5th of May, we had a little bit of turbulence there. So that's the next pocket to watch, is up into the 13140s. And we'll see if we can get up in there, above the 13020s, up to the 13140s. That'd be an interesting area to watch to see if there's sellers in that pocket. If we get a pullback, you just watch these same levels, right? What do we do at the 12930s, 12920s again when we pull back into that area? That's something to watch, right? If we manage to dip below that area, are we going to see a hold at the 12720s? It's another area to watch, right? And if we dip below that area, then there's 12660s. Do we see a hold there? So this is just all things to watch. But being that we're above, to me, that's like a dividing line or dividing area, the 12500s by 12600 area. When I'm watching that area, I'm looking now in all back tests to see if the buyers are now there and holding us up. As long as we keep squeezing to the upside, I'll definitely be looking to take it level to level and make sure to take off most of your position and maybe leave one runner or no runner. It all depends on your sizing, right? If you only got, if you only have one, then you take it off at the first level that you get to, first level of turbulence, right? If you've got more than one, you can take off, the majority of them, or take off half and leave one for a little bit better than break even. If you've got 10, you could definitely take off 8 and leave 2, right? So and maybe leave 2 for break even, but it's all based on your risk assessment. And also it's all based on your mentality. Your trading mentality is more important than all the setups in the world. How you feel about a trade, the execution of it, where you take profits, where your stop loss is, and how you feel about that mentally is incredibly important. So don't forget that. It's not only about the dollars and cents, it's also about how you feel about that trade, because that will determine how many more of those shots you'll take and how confident you are. Confidence is a huge part of trading. It's not just the ones and zeros, right? Your confidence is incredibly important when it comes to trading. And that's something that you have to, really focus on, your mental health. 150%. I believe that. Okay. Taking a peek at Amazon. Looks like his bat being amazing. Nice break here above the 126 area. We saw a squeeze up into the 136 area. That was our next target level. You looked at the last week's video with charts, it was there. That we got through here. The 120 2461 area is great. Up into this. Now, could we see a back test here? It's possible. You can see a little bit of what's that, consolidation here on the charts, right? Pullbacks here, pullbacks here. But it's kind of funky with the split, right? But let's see what we get going into Monday and Tuesday, and if we see a strong pullback on Amazon. But I'll be watching the first hitch around 130.63, see what happens there. Then any drops into the 126s, I'll be seeing if anything happens there. If we buy above the 136 area, then we want to see if we can get a rise here. First area, 140.04. And then the next area is right up here, 144.50s, it looks like. That's the next area that I'll be watching on Amazon. Keep it moving. Netflix. So Netflix is, we're looking at this. Saw this dip here. Definitely want to clear the 230s and want to see if we can begin to get a close of the gap, right? I think we talked about this last week. I'm not sure, but what we talked about was that Netflix is starting or adjusting their business model where they're going to be advertising within their Netflix movies and shows and series, where advertisers, I believe, can pay for ad placement. And if you wonder kind of what does that look like, do you remember Transformers? I'm trying to remember the was it Michael Bay? I don't remember the exact director for that, but they had like Ford advertising all through the movies. Like everywhere you looked, at like Ford, 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 and signs and all this type of stuff. And that does bring revenue, right? When you're willing to do that, that does bring revenue. Brands will pay for ad placement. And that's like Netflix has great content. Their biggest problem, turning a profit. They've got to find a way to fund that great content, pay all those actors, right? Pay all these producers, right? They have wonderful content. I'm actually like, if as a product, Netflix is actually amazing. Their problem is profit. As a business, they have to figure out the profit side, and you cannot depend on eyeballs as the metric, right? Because there's so many different streaming platforms that are vying for our attention. Their best thing to do is advertising. Monetize the eyeballs you already have. You have a significant user base. You can't allow, in my opinion, you can't allow your profitability and your viability to shareholders to be controlled by, we have found new eyeballs. It's just nuts. Like, I think it's you have enough eyeballs now. Monetize what you got. So I think that's a great pivot for them. And how they execute that is going to be very important headed into their next earnings. I think it's a very important strategical shift that they've made, and it could reap huge dividends for Netflix, and also for all the actors and people that do business with Netflix, and also for their investors. We'll see how that shakes out, though, right? Because you can have an idea, you can have a thesis, whatever, but the execution of it is what's important. So we'll see how that works out for Netflix. Oh, but the levels I'm watching, hard on me. Let's see if we can get to squeeze into the 240s. If we do, maybe we see a gap close. That's possible, right? But there's still a lot of turbulence in the markets. And even though we saw a nice run last week, we have, and tech was strong, right? We have to watch to see which are going to be the individual drivers, which specific companies are going to be the drivers if we continue to rally, right? And out of those tech stocks, which specific tickers are going to be the laggards, right? And so you want to watch that, because if things flip and turn on their head, the laggards are going to be the first to go. So just keep an eye on that. Just because like say a rising tide floats all boats. No, a rising tide may make the indices go up, but specific tickers may be under pressure just based on their business model. So keep an eye on Netflix. Watch those levels. Definitely we can watch the 212s back into the 204s. But this area here, I think, is really interesting. We could even see a dip down into right into about the 212 area where this old pop gray was. That's interesting area. Or actually, it's this so where this pop gray is here, we'll see. We have right up at a pop blue here around this 225-ish, 225-ish area, right in there. So this is an interesting area, actually. The 212s to the 225s for Netflix. The next area is up here around the 240s. We'll see what Monday holds. That Nancy Pelosi Taiwan trip is definitely interesting. Or Taiwanese trip is definitely interesting. That's definitely something to keep an eye on. NVIDIA. So NVIDIA is at the top of this zone that we have here that has kind of spent quite a bit of time in the last few weeks. I will see what play to put on. I did not hang an order here. I actually technically should have sold some premium on this, like a vertical or something, but I didn't do it. Just a crazy week. I had some outside the house things to do, so I did definitely miss a few setups here. But watching this, I'll see how this reacts next week. We have a line here, 181.91, that just happens to coincide or concur with the top of this zone, right? 181s, 180s by the 157-ish area. So we'll see if we retrace within this zone. that'll be interesting to watch. If we do, I'll probably put on something at the beginning of next week on this. Look to the left. You see, we dropped it to the 180s, bought up, 180s, lower 180s, bought up, tested it here, bought up, back tested, sold, right? When we finally cracked through, oh, we're gone. Back test right into this 181-ish area. Out of that area, back test again, out of that area, back into it, break under, back test, and we sold, right? Just look at this. That's why this area right here, these 181s, that's why this is an area of significance. And if I had been sitting at the computer on on Friday, Thursday, I was just kind of funky days for me. Those would have been the areas to swing into. I lightly played I don't think I played NVIDIA, I think I played Tesla, but those have been the areas to to get a play from, just based on the previous levels from the candle structure and my lines here. So heading into next week, if we break above, watch for a squeeze up into the 188.30s area for stop. Then up here around the 191s, pop purple. And not sure if we'd have the strength to push higher than this into the 200s, but you can look to the left and see this area. There's 200 by roughly about this 181, mid zone 190. This is all interesting. So this 190 is the mid zone. So we'll see. So if you're dividing this up into sections, right? If it happens to break the 181-ish area and we get a squeeze here, that first stop is 190. And then above that, if we manage to keep going, 198 to 200, right? And if we retrace, you see the levels in here. Anywhere in here, you see the levels, right? The 171, then the 165, you see all that in on NVIDIA. And also, they're about to pass, I think they're working on a bill for chip companies. I think there was news that Nancy Pelosi's husband sold his NVIDIA shares, but we'll see. We'll see how that works out and how that impacts the stock going forward. Microsoft, nice squeeze on Microsoft, nice push. Peel through their earnings. Microsoft usually does really good in certain, I think they're in 3 different sectors or 3 different areas. They usually do pretty well. Please check that out. Read through the earnings report. Microsoft's earnings report is usually worth reading through. A lot of these tech companies are laying off workers, which I think is interesting, which I wonder if it's during the pandemic, they laid off workers too. And it necessarily wasn't specific to the pandemic, but it was specific to them being able to strengthen their bottom line by quote unquote trimming the fat, right? Getting rid of some of the workers that you couldn't get rid of in a normal climate without issues, getting rid of some of those workers while you can to sort of lighten the load and only sticking with the the workers that are giving you a great return on your investments. So it's just interesting that it's almost 2 things could be true at the same time. Yes, there's a recession and companies could be preparing for that eventuality, right? That's possible. And also, yes, we can sort of lighten the load here to make our company more profitable and leaner. So both things can be true. We just have to see which one is more true over the coming months. So watching these levels on Microsoft, watch out for the 283, 283.60s, 284s, and then 286.40s. If we pull back, watch the 278.80s and 276s are the areas to watch on Microsoft. If you look to the left here, and we're looking from roughly the I think all these dates make sense, right? Even back to the 12th of April, all the way through the 5th of May. There's definitely major turbulence between the 276 and if you want to, like 276-ish, 278-ish area and the 290-ish area. That's really interesting on Microsoft. That's what you want to keep an eye on. Keep moving. Apple. So Apple up here in an interesting area. Could we squeeze further? Yes, we could definitely get up into the 167 area. That's possible. But if I'm watching this, numbers were great, I believe, for Apple. Where we are now, let's sort of see what happens this upcoming week. We're above this pop blue here. So there is a potential to squeeze up into the 167-ish area, about 166 or 167. Looking to the left at candle structure, 164, 166. It's possible too. Yeah, that's interesting. So I'll be watching for those areas. And if we get a pullback, watch the 158 to see if the buyers are there. If we drop below that, then the 154 area would be the next level to watch here. 154 so would be the next level to watch here on Apple. But remember what we talked about with Apple. The accessories are huge. And as long as we're opened up, their their numbers for accessory sales should be pretty good. So as long as people are able to go into the stores, go into the malls and buy Apple products and be sold Apple products, their accessory numbers should be pretty high. Meta. Now Meta is down around the 150s. That's interesting. Earnings, ad revenue wasn't as good as intended. And let's watch for the 161s, then watch for squeeze up at the 171-ish area potentially. We have a line here at 173.11, 179.60, 184.60. The downside, 150.66, 139.74, and 131.80. If I'm looking at Meta, based on your time horizon, this may not be a bad ticker to be in. Just depends on sort of what we have going on market wide. I believe Meta has, and we've been talking about this, guys, for weeks. They're kind of pivoting away from their advertising business as far as the way it's traditionally been run. They've been getting their butts kicked on Instagram. TikTok has been doing just sucking up an audience, right? But this is the interesting thing. I don't think they care. I think that Facebook or the company formerly known as Facebook, that's now Meta, I think that they're focused on the metaverse and of being the company that's able to curate that and being a trailblazer in that. I think that that's where their focus is, right? Because think about it. We talked about curation before, and where stores are placed will be interesting. Where Apple would want to be placed, where a company like Target or JC Penney, but like Nordstrom's, all these different stores, right? Where they'd want to be placed is really interesting, right? And what else could you have in the metaverse? Billboards. It's all these things you can have there that they could sort of be on the forefront of helping to create and curate, which would be a sort of a huge investment and boom, I would think, for the company as they pivot to be on the forefront of the future of the web, right? So really interesting. So we'll see if that's what they're doing. We'll see how well they execute it, because if you remember at the time, they executed what their acquisition of Instagram was flawless. Great acquisition. Acquisition of WhatsApp, I won't say flawless, but a good acquisition. So Facebook historically, even though they've had missteps, they've done a pretty good job of returning money to their shareholders, right? So I think what we have to think is this is not an unintelligent company. What are they going to do that's going to sort of move this share price up and give us faith in Meta again? You know, especially as they transition to the metaverse. It's going to be very interesting, in my opinion. Just my opinion, but definitely watch the levels that I mentioned. And I think that may be, take a peek at DLTR, just a peek. DLTR is okay, see right up here, this area. We could definitely sell from here. But I wanted to bring this up. Keep an eye on DLTR. Whenever the economy is under pressure, companies like Dollar Tree, Dollar General, they tend to do well because people can go there and their money can stretch further, right? You know, how many Twinkies can you buy for $1? How many loaves of bread can you buy for $1? And a place or a company like DLTR really caters to that audience, right? So if people are under pressure through inflation, even though it's not technically been declared, I would look for Dollar Tree to do well. But just keep an eye on it. I think it's interesting. Okie dokie. CMG, nice push here up against the 1569s. Next levels are 1592s, then 1605s, and 1622s. So the downside, we have 1548, 1523, 1510, and 1468. Breakout formation, but we'll see how this holds. Going to be interesting. Look over to the SPY, and look to the left here, what we have going on in May. And so maybe we reach the 416-ish area, but we can sort of chop around in there a little bit for a day or so between there and the 410s. If you like this video, please go to our YouTube channel, Power of Pivots, and subscribe. And you can look forward to, after you subscribe, to receiving videos from not just me, but videos from Elisa as she shows you how she utilizes her Power of Pivots script to be able to find great intraday setups, great pre-market setups, and great post-market setups and great swing plays. Thank you so much for your time. Keep your family safe. Hopefully you're having a wonderful summer. And always remember, you're one trade away